Here's the headline from Decrypt. Coinbase says SEC destroyed Gensler texts, demands court sanctions. And I don't know about you, but I am not the least bit surprised that this is the case. So here was the headline from about a week ago, September 4th, 2025. Avoidable errors wiped a year's worth of Gary Gensler's texts, ... Oops. That's from Cointelegraph. And, I covered it at the time, and I said, look, it's possible that there's some incompetency going on here. It's possible that they're doing something shady, and they were trying to hide their communications by a number of measures. And perhaps the truth is it's a blend of both, because we saw clear incompetency from the SEC under the reign of Supreme Leader and Dictator Kim Jong-Gensler over at the SEC. We saw both of those things here, so I wouldn't be surprised if this was something a bit more nefarious where they were trying to, but they also, for sure, are incompetent. You think about their X account getting hacked because they didn't implement 2FA. They were preaching you should implement. It's so funny highlighting this a week ago. They're preaching that you should implement 2FA, multi-factor, and they didn't. Of course they didn't, because reasons, folks. But this claim, this is coming from Paul Graywall. He's the chief legal officer at Coinbase, so that's their top in-house lawyer, and he's quite literally stating that the SEC destroyed documents when they were legally required to preserve them. So I'm going to get you all the latest. I also I got some notes here, my little moon Lambo fingers here. Didn't want to miss any of the good stuff. So there are a number of new things that we found as a result of this most recent legal filing. But before going further, I do want to be clear. All right, the Decrypt piece reads as follows. Coinbase has accused the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission of destroying former Chair Gensler's text messages, with industry observers calling it a credibility crisis that could weaken the regulator's position in future enforcement actions. Well, that's obviously true. Now, again, thankfully, new leadership, things have changed. Certainly happy to acknowledge that. Very happy to acknowledge that. But here's what Paul Graywall, again, this is Coinbase's chief legal officer, here's what he had to say. He wrote, the Gensler SEC destroyed documents they were required to preserve and produce. We now have proof from the SEC's own Inspector General. Today we asked the federal court to address this gross violation of public trust to ensure that it never happens again. And I will pause to note, this document was filed literally just yesterday. And I don't blame Paul Graywall for being freaking furious about this. It is infuriating. These people were doing disgusting things. And anyway, and then he says the SEC OIG report last week revealed texts from October 2022 through September 2023 were destroyed. The Gensler SEC did this even though we asked for information about all communications within the SEC related to crypto regulatory and enforcement decision making years ago. So, folks, they're saying, we learned this again about a week ago. Yeah, from 2022 to 2023, over that time period, yes, documents destroyed. But Coinbase, years ago, before they were destroyed, asked for those. They didn't get them. That's something. And then Paul says, we want expedited discovery, sanctions, and immediate production of all responsive texts. Considering the double standards of the previous chair, it's not surprising that the same agency that fined firms billions for record-keeping failures committed the exact same violations. Oh, that's certainly spot on. And now you can also imagine for XRP holders, this is during the time of the SEC v. Ripple lawsuit. What the hell else were they hiding that would be highly relevant for XRP holders? I bet it's something. If I had to guess, was there something or was there never something? I would bet that there is something, because this looks ridiculously shady. And I'm willing to speculate that absolutely. Because under that Mr. Burns lookalike, Kim Jong-Gensler, under his reign, look at what all of the judges had to say about what the SEC was doing, the disgusting things. You guys know what the magistrate judge Sarah Netburn had to say in the SEC v. Ripple case about unfaithful allegiance to the law. That's the SEC. All that and all the hypocrisy. What about the debt box case? Do you remember that one? Where they actually they used false information to get a company's, I guess I'm pulling from memory here, but it's like bank accounts. They straight up lied to get those accounts frozen And then it was found out, and then they got in trouble, and certain SEC lawyers, I believe, they got fired. And again, this is a little while back, so I'm pulling from memory, but it was something like that. That's about right. That doesn't just that's not an oops the doodles thing. No, that happens when there's rot in an agency, and it came from the top on down. It absolutely did. So it just makes me wonder what had to do with the SEC v. Ripple case. What commentary had to do with XRP specifically that was cited that we're just never going to get to see now. It makes you wonder. And so this lawsuit, it's over FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. And it's about getting internal SEC communications visible to the public. Like, that's at the core of this, obviously, transparency. Especially messages about how they're treating crypto regulation, including what's happened, like I said, with XRP. And so, it's just crazy because the jaw dropper, according to this report, is that the SEC deleted nearly a full year of text messages from Gary Gensler when he was chair. And this indicates it's way more likely, I think, way more likely that it's not just incompetence, it was willful. And so it was those messages over that time period, and highly critical time period for if you're an XRP holder, a period of high interest, And so the policy used, by the way, it was to justify this deletion, used to justify the deletion. It was an internal rule that wipes devices not communicating with the SEC network for 45 days or more. That's just so stupid. And what's worse, many of the devices belonging to other senior officials also weren't backed up properly. So beyond Gensler, there may be tens of officials whose text messages, which might have contained key discussions about crypto assets, XRP, lawsuits, policy shifts, you name it, all partially or entirely lost. The SEC, they did perform some searches for text in 2025, but only selectively and after many pieces may have already been destroyed. So you can see why Paul Graywall's upset about that, of course. And so this matters because these internal communications, they would offer transparency. They help us understand how regulators are approaching crypto policy. What they think about asset classifications. Again, highly relevant for XRP holders. What enforcement priorities are, just broadly speaking, etc. All that type of stuff. So if communications are destroyed or withheld, as happened here, we're missing important parts of the picture. So in short, regulators promising clear rules but acting in secret, or worse, in this case, probably destroying relevant records on purpose, that erodes public trust. It's just completely despicable. So what new information did we get from the report other than the things that I've already cited here? I got a list here for you. 5 bullet points. Number 1, the exact time frame of the missing texts. Now we got that from October 18th, 2022 through September 6th, 2023. More precision. The confirmation that a factory reset was performed after the device was wiped/flagged inactive, which permanently deleted not just texts, but also operating system logs. Okay, why? Folks, come on. This is why I say, it's one of the many reasons I say, this looks way more suspicious. It looked suspicious a week ago, looks way more suspicious now. In terms of intent, Another one. That backups for Gensler's device hadn't been done for nearly a year, so there was no recent restore point. That's the claim anyway. That's a new information. Also, the report describes specific deficiencies. So no reliable logging of device status with the mobile device management MDM system, vendor software bugs that might have prevented communication, poor change control procedures, etc. So again, it goes back to, is that incompetency? Or was it by design? Or did they catch it and like, we're going to keep those? And then also, the estimated cost of the after action/report effort is about $53,000, and the SEC had officially notified the National Archives of the record loss. So once it was too late, oops the doodles. Thanks for nothing, Kim Jong Gensler. I am so glad that he's gone. I am so glad he is no longer running the SEC. We have, for the first time in history, an administration that's pro-crypto from the top on down. From the top of our government on down. The war on crypto is over. XRP is not a security, and it's all being embraced, so that's great, but my God. The disgusting things that happened over most of the last half a decade under Biden and Gensler, we're just going to things will just keep trickling out as the years pass. We're just going to keep learning about more and more despicable things. There are going to be a lot of